Hello friends, I am McHarg working as a assistant professor in Ecological Technology, College of Engineering. This is module number 4. In this module we are going to learn town aesthetics, landscape, architecture, open spaces. So in this slide we are going to see what is landscape architecture. So landscaping is an art of planning that drives walks, lawns, shrubs, flower beds, trees, etc. so as to form a beautiful setting for a building, as shown in the figure. They are to be provided at different levels depending upon the contours available at the site. You can go for design of landscape architecture. This slide represents the landscape architecture at garden along the overbridges, in the indoors and in the gardens. Then we will see what are the purposes of landscape architecture. In overcrowded town with high densities of population, landscape architecture decorates the town with parks, gardens, recreational open spaces, tree-lined avenues and streets. The proper landscaping imparts beauty and its result into a good setting of the buildings. The provision of trees in a town results into many practical advantages, like the trees relieve eye strain, reduce glare on paving surfaces, lower streets temperature, absorb carbon dioxide and give oxygen, act as windbreaker, provide shade during summer, etc. The urban landscaping is intended for developing an agreeable, cheerful, pleasant and attractive environment. The silent feature of landscape architecture consists of continuous park system, selection of trees, size of trees, standard of living and street trees. Then in the master plan may be defined as a general plan for the future layout of a city. It shows both existing and proposed street, open spaces, public building, etc. Object of master plan: it serves as an overall picture and program for the future development of the town. It helps in intelligent use of public funds for achieving good amenities, convenience and health of the inhabitants. It helps in restricting the hazard and unplanned growth of town. It places various functions which a town has to perform in physical relationship of each other so as to avoid the chances of mutual conflict. Then we are going to see what is the necessity of master plan. The master plan is necessary to control the growth of various industries in a systematic way. The master plan discourages the growth of a town in an unplanned and unscientific way. The master plan gives a perspective picture of a fully developed town. It is to limit to a certain extent the unprecedented flow of rural population to the urban area. Master plans show the evils which may crop up due to overcrowding of the population. This slide represents the landscape architecture at garden along the overbridges, in the indoors and in the gardens. By using the data, the maps to be prepared are present and proposed communication, present and proposed open areas, then residential areas, then important public building, civic centers, public amenities, public utility services, contour map of the town, open spaces, parks and playground, position of river, lakes, etc., landscaped features, then type of lands such as residential, agricultural and industrial, etc. Then in this slide we are going to see what are the features of master plan. First is population. Based on present population and the rate of population growth, the population after next 30 to 50 years is calculated. Secondly, the density. After population, forecasted density of population is decided for various areas like town center, suburb, peripheral area, etc. as per the required standard. Then the land requirement. In the next step, the total land required for the anticipated population is worked out. Then land distribution. The total available land has to be distributed for the different land uses. Then in this slide we are going to see what is town center. A town center is a central place of town where people meet for various purposes like business, civic activity, shopping, etc. It should be near to the central bus station, railway station, etc. There are different type of town centers such as business center, civic center and light shopping center. In the business center we have demand stores, then convenience stores and impulse store. Whereas in case of light shopping centers, it should have a departmental store, shopping street and market. Then the town planning schemes. In Gujarat, the first town planning act was implemented in 1915. This provided for planning of small areas around the city, which is growing for growth. Town planning schemes. This act was modified in the year 1954, providing a preparation of master plan for the entire city. Urban planning process in Gujarat is a two-step process and is described in the GTPUDA and its rule. The first step is to prepare a development plan for the entire city. The second step is to prepare town planning schemes for smaller portion of the development area for which the DP is prepared. So in this slide we are going to see the central business district. The central business district is the town center where most business and commerce is located. Then we will see the characteristics of central business district, that is CBD. It has land values are very high. The CBD has tallest building. CBD has shortage of car parking space, high density of daytime pedestrians. CBD is dominated by business office space and retail and limited rental development. Then public utility services. They are hospitals, fire stations, parks and playgrounds, electricity, public buildings, public transport system, roads and streets, market and shopping centers, gas supply, water supply, sewerage and refuse disposal. Then amenity space. For the purpose of this regulation, amenity space means a statutory space kept in any layout to be used for any of the amenities such as open spaces, parks, recreational grounds, playgrounds, sports, complex gardens, convenience shopping, parking lots, primary and secondary schools, clinics, dispensaries, nursery, health club, sub-post office, police station, electric substation, ATM of banks, then electronic cyber library, open market, garbage bins, water supply installation, electricity supply installation, sewage treatment plant and includes other utilities services and conveniences. Then open spaces. Then land or open surface open to sky is called open space. Surface not covered by impermeable surface. The characteristics of open spaces are relatively free from development. It is vegetated to provide visual contrast to man-made environment. It is much more than a leftover category of land. Then open spaces. Physically, open space is described as land not intensively developed for residential, commercial, industrial or institutional purpose. Public or privately held land, agricultural lands and forest, undeveloped shorelines and scenic lands, public parks and preserves, water bodies, wetlands, streams, floodplains. These are all open spaces. This slide represents the landscape architecture at garden along the overbridges, in the indoors, and in the then as per EN 1967 identified 8 important types of open spaces are surface water, marshes, flood plains, aquifers, aquifer recharge area, steep lands, prime agricultural land, urban forest and woodlands. Then types of open spaces. They have been categorized into 4 categories such as utility open spaces, general open spaces, corridor open spaces and multi-use open space. Then we are going to see what is the utility open space. It consists of resource lands, urban utility space, flood control and drainage, reserves and preserves. In case of a resource land for production and extraction, for example forest, grazing areas, lakes and rivers for water supply. Then urban utility space, it consists of dam sites, reservoir, landfills, waste disposal area and treatment facilities. Then under flood control and drainage covers flood plain, flood banks, watershed, drainage ways, etc. Then reserves and preserves. Under this category, the open spaces are forest, area for wildlife, lands for future expansion, etc. Then in this slide we are going to see the types of open spaces such as general open spaces. It consists of wilderness areas, protected areas, natural parks, urban parks, then recreational areas and urban development open spaces. In wilder areas, scenic and ecological values are maintained, whereas in case of protected areas, control for development, coastline and shore areas, etc. The natural parks, forests, city parks, etc. This comes under general open spaces. Then zoos, botanical garden, urban forest, water bodies, amphitheatre. Then golf courses, playgrounds, swimming pool, picnic areas, green belts, setbacks and open spaces around building forms the general open spaces. Then the other type of open spaces are corridor open space, right of way space of highways, streets. It comes under corridor open space. Then multi-use open space, campuses, private clubs with recreational facilities, cemeteries and garden areas comes under multi-use open space. Then in this slide we are going to see the corridor open space consists of right of way space of highway streets. Then multi-use open space consists of campuses, private clubs with recreational facilities, cemeteries and garden areas, etc. Then in this slide we are going to see the benefit of open spaces, that is economic, structuring development and ecological process. In economic benefits, spatial improvements are linked to cities' economic future through development, whereas in case of structuring development, buffer between conflicting land uses are provided. Then in case of ecological process, adequate amount of carefully located spaces are necessary for the improved management and use of our essential natural resources, air and water. Then in this slide we are going to see the benefit of open spaces in the form of social benefit, aesthetic benefit and psychological benefit. In case of social benefit, interaction between man and nature, enjoyment, recreational, etc. forms the social benefit, whereas in case of aesthetic benefits, the preserve natural beauty, improve ugliness, buffering unpleasant view and disturbing spaces, visual relief from man-made cityscapes forms the aesthetic benefits, whereas in case of psychological, it is going to maintain emotional well-being of the citizen. The benefit of open spaces, they are economic, structuring development, ecological process. In economic, spatial improvement are linked to the city's economic future through development, whereas in case of structuring development, the benefit is buffer between conflicting and land uses in the form of open space is provided. Whereas in case of ecological process, adequate amount of carefully located spaces are necessary for the improved management and use of our essential natural resources, air and water. Then in this slide we are going to see the value of open space. There is a value to preserving most types of open space land uses, but the values tend to vary widely with the size of the area, the proximity of the open space to residences, the type of open space and the method of analysis. Both publicly held and privately held lands can provide open space benefit, but because people who do not directly own the land still enjoy the benefit, open spaces is likely to be underprovided by the private sector. Further, the value of open spaces are beyond the benefit to private landowners. Open space provides a range of benefit to citizens of community. Similarly, open space provide parks and natural area recreation, wetland and forest supply, stormwater drainage and wildlife habitat. Similarly, farms and forests provide aesthetic benefit to the surrounding resident, and in rapidly growing urban and suburban areas, any preserved land can offer relief from congestion and other negative effects of development. Then the other protected areas, they are non-NIPAS category, that is second growth forest greater than 1000 meter and having slope more than 50%, then mangroves and fish sanctuaries, then buffer strips along the river banks in forest, agricultural land, urban area, etc. Similarly, environmentally constructed areas, it covers areas prone to weather and water related hazards, vulnerable to earthquake induced hazards, affected by volcanic hazards and areas subject to erosion. Then the next category is protected agriculture areas, and others include watersheds for domestic water supply, historic sites, utility easements, visual corridors with high aesthetic values, geothermal reserves are the comes under other protected areas. In this slide, environment and natural resources sectors and subsector for ecological profiling. It includes lands. They are public lands, private lands and ancestral domain. Then under forest land, they are protection forest and production of forest. Then mineral lands. It consists of metallic mineral lands and non-metallic mineral lands. Then under park, wildlife and other reservations. Then water resources, under that fresh water and marine water. Then air quality, waste management areas, solid, liquid and toxic and hazardous resources. Then open spaces. It is more than residual area. It is not physically intensively developed and can be public and private. Regardless of the ownership of the land, almost everyone can benefit from the open space. Adequate open space is vital for the functioning of urban areas. Planning and regulatory framework of the Philippines have been emphasis on conserving and protecting various types of open spaces. Generally, in case of residential layout, generally 10% open space has been provided whenever the sanction of layout or subdivision is done. The exterior open spaces at the front, side and rear of the buildings depend upon occupancy, plot size, nature of development, maybe row building, semi-detached building or detached building, and width of road fronting the plot. The locality shall be given in the appendix. The building shall be set back at least 3 meters from the internal means of access in a layout of buildings. Buildings abutting 2 or more streets. When a building abuts 2 or more streets, the setback from the street shall be such that if the building was fronting each street, Then open spaces for tower-like structures. Notwithstanding the provision of bylaws, tower-like structures may be permitted only with 6 meter open space at the ground level and 1 setback at the upper level, provided that the total height does not exceed 24 meter. If it exceeds 24 meter but does not exceed 37.5 meter, the minimum open space at the ground level shall be 9 meter beyond 37.5 meter. The minimum open space at the ground level shall be 12 meter with 2 setbacks at the upper level. The terrace created by the setback shall be accessible through individual flats or lawns. The deficiency in open space shall be made good at the setbacks at higher levels. Then interior open spaces. Inner soaks. The whole of one side of more rooms intended for human habitation, including kitchen and not abutting on either the front, rear or side open spaces, shall abut an interior open space whose minimum width shall be 3 meter. Further, inner soak shall have an area at all levels of soak of not less than 1/5 height of the highest wall abutting the soak, provided that when the room excluding staircase, bay and bathrooms and auto closet is independent for its light and ventilation on an inner soak, the dimension shall be such as is required for each wing of the buildings. Then following are the exemptions to open spaces. Projection into open space. Every open space provided, either interior or exterior, shall be kept free from erection thereon and shall be open to the sky, and no cornice, chajja, roof or weather shade more than 0.75 meter wide shall overhang or project over the said open space so as to reduce the width to less than minimum required. Even a canopy not exceeding 5 meter in length and 2.5 meter in width in the form of cantilever and unenclosed over the main entrance, providing a minimum clear height of 2.1 meter below the canopy. The canopy shall not have access from upper floors for using as a sit-out place. There shall be minimum clearance of 1.5 meter between the plot boundary and canopy. Then following are the marginal open spaces for accessory building. For the purpose of provision, garage shall mean a detached ground floor structure in the compulsory open space of plot, or open space on the front floor of building or any part thereof, or space in the basement or any upper floor of a building or any part thereof, and intended to be used for the parking or sheltering of mechanically propelled vehicles, where repairs to each such vehicles may be carried out. Thank you.